Hi class, I wanted to go through the visual analysis worksheet so that you guys can have some good scores on this project that'll be part of your quarter 1 grade. And since I won't be seeing some of you in class at all this week, I want to make sure that I can communicate as best as I can to you. So here is our Google Classroom, and if we're looking, this is the one that you guys will be using. I changed it slightly, so if you copy this from a few days ago, even last week, any day before yesterday, then you need to change your worksheets. Here's the part that changed. I took out a question and I moved up the last question here. And then instead of answering this on the actual presentation, number 5, I now just added it to this worksheet. So I think this will make both of our jobs a lot easier, and you can, use this instead of having to worry about writing it a second time on the presentation. So there is the actual worksheet. I'm going to take you through each of them. The date of the source should be pretty straightforward. And I'll use this one again as an example. So here's the date. That's all you need to put there. Sometimes, most of the time, you're going to have an artist listed here. Sometimes you won't. So make sure you put the artist. If there's no artist given, please just put none given. Put the title, and please keep it in order of your presentation. So here is my attention company is the name of this one. And then my next one would be idle hours because that's next in my presentation. So make sure your worksheet just follows your order of presentation. The type of source is pretty straightforward. All of this should maybe take 5 minutes at most. This top part and then numbers 1 and 2. For here, I'm just asking you to literally tell me what you see. List the details that you see in the image. Just start listing things. Numbers 3, 4, and 5 require you to do a little bit more thinking. It'll probably take you about 5 minutes each, I would say. So the reason we're working in partners is to make this more manageable. I don't recommend trying to do it all by yourself or to try to catch up for a weak partner, and because really the work is just going to suffer rather than you trying to help a friend out. So what do you think the message of this image is? And then please actually use details to support it. And let me show you, at this point, let me show you one that I've done as an example. You can find this example right here. So let's open that. So this is the same painting. This is all about this one. And I chose the idea of opportunity. It's a painting, so I listed it as a painting. And then here I just put what I saw. There's a little boy in the front center of this painting. He is wearing a cap made of newspaper and a pole that is probably supposed to be a rifle. He is standing in front of a green wooden wall that has old posters that have been torn away. And then I listed the people in there. I listed the actions, some objects that are in there, and some symbols. This part, try your best. You guys see a lot of art, you listen to music, you should understand symbols at this point in your life. So let's see. This little feature over here lets you zoom in so you can try to see maybe like if you're going to try to read something in the back of the image. Another good thing is to click on these details, and it tells you a little bit more about the artist, and it tells you a little bit about the painting. I chose as my message, I think the message seems to be war related, and I put based on what he is wearing, so that's my support with details. What he's wearing, holding, and posing. But maybe its message is that the next war, yeah, so the next war is coming, and it won't be a military war. His clothes and surrounding make it appear like he's in poverty, so maybe the message is that blacks are still fighting for freedom, but this time economic. So there's a couple reasons I got to that message. I know part of it is just I know U.S. history better than you guys. But he looks like he's supposed to be in a soldier's uniform based on what he's wearing. There's like a patch right here. The background doesn't look very nice, so that's where I got all the economic stuff. And then I put, for number 4, you're supposed to relate it to something in the time period. We're only at the beginning of our study, so I understand that a lot of you guys don't have the context already, but that's why I provided these other resources, some timelines, some historical eras. So let's click on this one and see what you can find about that time period. Okay, so let's go back. So again, my year is 1878. I'm going to find where my time period fits in here. Okay. Maybe it's about the Second Industrial Revolution. Maybe. It's also really close to these years, so let's see what goes on in there. Sectional controversy, war, Reconstruction, slavery, the Civil War, Reconstruction. Let's click on that. So it tells you a little bit of information about that. I'm not sure why there's this ad. That doesn't fit. So ignore any weird ads that come up. But it tells you that after the Civil War, people were trying to improve the lives for blacks. And so that's kind of the message, the point that I'm getting in number 4. Number 5 is now you need to actually relate it to the time period, to your ideal that you chose. So I need to see something like, I chose the ideal of opportunity. I chose liberty for this painting because I need to see something like that at the beginning. I chose, and I need to see a because. And you're going to explain after that. I chose the idea of opportunity because the piece shows how there is more potential for blacks now that slavery is abolished, but also recognizes the limits that are in place. It is almost like throwing a kid in a soldier's uniform out into the war and expecting him to make it out okay, but not providing the proper weapons or gear. So I think this, number 5, you can't really do that well if you don't do all of this. So 5 should be the last thing that you do. Okay. And I hope that that helps and that you guys can agree, even if you think there might be a different message, at least you can see that that I have support for my example through the painting. We don't have the artist to interview. So we can't actually ask him what the message is. We can't ask him, which ideal do you think this relates to? But that's what art analysis is. You interpret art, you come up with support for your interpretation using the evidence available, the year, the context. You can probably find out more about the artist. If you click on them, you can find other things they did, and maybe there's some other support. Like this is more about what he did. He has a lot of still life. So let's see what else. Other things I want to remind you is that please read over the directions again. Remember, you're supposed to have one negative and one positive example for each ideal if you're doing all 5 ideals. And those ideals are liberty, democracy, equality, opportunities, and rights. So if you see in my example, I kind of gave a negative version of opportunity. But I also saw that there's kind of a gray area. So if you're doing rights, you might find it, and you see some sort of something about the women's rights movement, you might be able to make the argument that it's a positive example, but then you're going to show another image in which rights for women were not there. So a negative example. And I hope this all helps you. Oh, the other one I was going to show you is this website gives you a little bit of context too. So if I go back using that same example, 1878, there's not much. There's definitely important things happening in here, but for whatever reason, it's not on this timeline. But you see that it's after the Civil War. 1865 is when Lincoln's assassinated, and then you get kind of a break, but there should be some more stuff in here. But use your best judgment as you do this. Don't leave any of this blank. Art analysis is legitimate as long as you're able to support what you are arguing with evidence. Okay. Today, the 4 of the worksheets are due. I expect that each of these worksheets should take about 20 minutes. If you're finishing them very quickly, you're probably not doing a good job. If you find other person's interpretation of your piece, like if you search for the title of your art piece and you find something online about that, please don't just copy and paste it. If you do use it as a resource, just give it a little bit of credit. You're still going to get your points for it unless you copy and paste and say that you came up with that interpretation on your own. That's called plagiarism, and it's wrong, but I'm not going to get upset at you if you are consulting other sources. So please just cite your work if you are using other people's work. You don't have to. Everyone in here is capable of interpreting these pieces of art. And that is all I have for you. Thank you all.